discussion led by Dr.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome. I'll be the moderator for this session. And the subject of this session is Global Leaders Dialogue on FDI in Asia. We have four very distinguished panelists. Dr. John Endicott, Roger Neuschwander, Lisa Wallace, and Jorge Fernandez. Their titles and institutional affiliations will appear on their respective slides. Each panelist will have up to 12 minutes. At the end, a signal will be given at the end of 10 minutes to alert that time will be given. This should leave us about 15 minutes for questions. Please hold all your questions to the end of all four presentations. Before we get started, I wanted to paint with a broad brush and set the table, the framework within which the presentations will take place. It's always good to remember that Asia is a vast continent with vast differences in all walks of life and human endeavor. And let me just give you some of the details. And you can see that, for example, you have and I've just given some broad parameters. You've got the population, and you've got the growth rates. That's what I wanted to show you most of all. The United States grew 3.1% in the last fourth quarter. China grew 10.3% in 2010, while the world's economy grew only at 4.5%. The rest of the stuff you can see, and on the right side, right column, you see China is, and I've given the details. It is the fourth largest filer of patents. Now, what does that mean? It means it depicts strength in R&D. Yet China, as I mentioned earlier, is still considered, quote-unquote, a developing country. On the next page, you will see that we have got all the other details that I've given. And so let me take out my hard copy. It's easier to see. When you go to the this is one thing I wanted to emphasize, and that is, what does FDI indicate? It indicates the attractiveness of an economy, and it can provide for new markets, cheaper production facilities. The classical definition of FDI is a physical investment in another country, and the note at the end is what I want to draw your attention to. You know, the IMF definition of foreign direct investment says it must reflect, quote unquote, lasting interest by the direct investor. Lasting interest implies long-term relationship and significant influence on management. There are 5 economic zones. In 2002, the party adopted the socialist market economy to encourage 2 markets and 2 resources. One of those resources is FDI, and the Pearl River Delta, and then I mentioned that the FDI has played an important role in China's economic development, contributes 30% of GDP. Most of the FDI in China is in manufactures and auto and machine building. China's market is fragmented. There are no national chains. Then I go to the next page is FDI in India. And according to Ernst & Young's India Attractiveness Survey, and the Outlook report of 2009. Foreign investors see huge long-term growth potential, and I've given the main services that are there. Software, IT services, they're the largest. And in 2010, the US FDI projects, there were 206. Others include Japan, Germany, China, UK, Italy, and Canada. FDI in Asia, and this is something I'm painting with a broad brush. China and Japan are the most attractive locations in Asia. Other attractive locations include Hong Kong, Singapore, India, South Korea, Taiwan, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, and Thailand. The biggest difference between Japan and its Asian competitors include quality, R&D, transportation, logistics infrastructure, and telecommunications infrastructure. Today, migration is global. That's one of the overarching messages. 80 American universities have branch offices, branch campuses overseas. Temple University has been in Japan for the last 40 years. Yale University is planning a campus in Singapore, and New York University is setting up campus in Shanghai, China. When you look at Asia, you have to look at the pros and cons, especially in certain categories, such as, and I've listed those: wages, intellectual property, taxes, domestic markets, bureaucracy, safety and environment, market analysis, assessment. Some strategic challenges for partnerships in Asia that we should be cognizant of. There's great diversity of languages, culture, and as well as economic, wealth, and political system. By this I mean, this is what I alluded to earlier. Asia is huge. When you talk about languages, English is the lingua franca for business purposes in places like Singapore, Hong Kong, the Philippines, and India. When you look at differences in culture and religion, your value systems, which are based on Confucianism, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, Shintoism, I mean, it's the whole spectrum. And then you look at political systems or economic systems. They are again all over the place. You have free markets like you have in Japan, Korea, or South Korea, or Singapore. China, you have what is called as state capitalism. In India, it's a mixed economy. And then if you go to Burma, you have the military junta. So you have all these differences. And I mentioned at the end that China and India represent emerging markets where the potential for profit is driven by a rapidly growing middle class with increasing disposable income. And this I alluded to in my opening remarks. In China alone, 400 million people have been lifted from poverty in the last 30, 40 years, which no other country in the world has been able to accomplish. There's a compressed development time. And the last slide that I had is on the FDI. And you can see, given the inflows and the outflows of, I could not have listed all the countries in Asia, so I just took the major ones. You've got United States as a sort of a benchmark, and then you've got China, you've got India, you've got Japan and Indonesia. In FDI, China and Japan will remain the most attractive destinations. The inward FDI for China is $60 billion, and the outward is $56 billion. And I alluded to this earlier. With that, I will turn it over to my fellow panelists, and we have decided that the order will be Dr. John Endicott, followed by Roger, followed by Lisa, followed by Ore. With that, I turn it over to John.